Recently, I came across this article in the Wall Street Journal, and it stated that even graduates from the top business schools are struggling to get hired. So clearly, the question isn't, do you have a degree? It rather is, do you have the skills to build and show projects with the help of AI? I know, you must be wondering now, what is this? How do I build projects with the help of AI and everything? Don't worry, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the episode 4 of The Curious Workforce. Our guest today is Haripriya. She's the Director of Product at Dell Technologies. And she is here to walk us through these questions step by step in a clear manner. Let's just dive into it now. Hi Haripriya, welcome to The Curious Workforce. We're very, very excited to have you and walk through your journey. Before we begin, we would like to hear some things about you, about your career.
Sure. Thanks, Celine, for this opportunity. So let me give you like a quick background about myself. My name is Haripriya. I have a work experience of more than about 10 years, right? So I have like a very interesting journey, I would say, from my work experience perspective. Started out as an engineer and then pivoted to doing something creative in advertising and strategy. So I learned a lot from that, multiple stints working in agencies. And then, so I did like a quick pivot to having my own company, which was in the breakfast sector, and then moved on to serving all day meals. Right. So the company is still about 10 plus years strong and still existing, and now a non-executive director there. And then post my stint in entrepreneurship, like the most logical step for me was to get into product. So for the last 6 plus years, I've been meticulously like working on different products, starting from startups to mid-scale to large-scale companies.
That's really an inspiring journey, Haripriya. And I was like you said, you've seen a lot of career growth opportunities, starting as an engineer, going into product, starting your own startup. I think it's been very inspiring for me when I reached out to you and I saw your LinkedIn profile. I was like, that's exactly a personality that we want to interview and that our audience would want to, know and understand how the journey has been. So before we I think we'll just dive into the questions now. You've been
Sure.
leading some of the large products at Dell,
Mhm.
and you've seen this AI wave suddenly come into picture. So, like your journey, when you started, there wasn't much about AI. There wasn't this shift. So, how has your role evolved or changed day to day as a product manager compared to what it was 3 to 5 years ago?
No, that's a very interesting question, and I think that really sets the stage. So I'll start with, what has changed, right? So earlier, the grind is real, right? Like you would go in from writing the PRDs, doing a lot of analysis, user interviews, a lot of coordination, meeting summaries to getting into the grind of things, right? Like maybe, I mean, if you're in a startup, you will also do like prototypes on your own and stuff like that, right? So lot of that work, I would say, has just become a lot more easy and hands-on. So if you were to sort of look at it, the AI is starting to handle the speed for me. Right, so which means it's making me ultra productive. So if I were to do about 15 things earlier, now it's just making me do those 15 things, right, but in a much shorter span of time. So I think that's where AI has really plugged in and made like a huge sort of a brought in the right kind of change, I would say. But however, what hasn't changed, right, because it's equally important for us to sort of talk about it. What hasn't changed is talking to your users, understanding the problem statement, figuring out whether AI is the right solution or not, right? And PMs, I think, has started to focus more on the judgment, like asking the right questions, prioritization, and all of that, right? So I think it's a very healthy mix and healthy balance is what I'm seeing.
I think it's like you said, you've taken AI in such a healthy way. I think your tone says a lot of positive things. It's made you hyperactive. But when this sudden shift happened, was it overwhelming for you, or how did you take this steep shift into, like, even at a senior level? I mean, you work for so many years, you're used to doing PRDs in a certain way, or planning your day in a certain way. Now that there was a helper in charge, how did that affect you? Was it like, how was the feeling like?
To be very honest, I think just like everybody else, the anxiety is real, right? Like, let me sort of say it out loud, right? Because there are tools, there are like buzzwords and new tech and new way of working coming in every single day, right? And it's not even an exaggeration, and that's like the hard reality, right? So even I think one thing is even leaders. I mean, there's no more that hierarchy or anything. Is like everyone is a beginner, right? So it's the level playing field, I think, for the first time. Right, it means that some of the core thing, right, like first principles thinking of stay curious, just have that learning mindset and just embrace it, right? Like you don't really need to master 100 tools to be the best in AI, right? I think that's what I have understood, at least in the last year or so, because I was also doing the chasing the tool for a while. And then I realized, listen, I need to step back because this is not going to end, right? So I need to learn in communities, right? Learn by building, right? I don't know a lot of things. I need to work with people who are also figuring it out. So that's where communities like, I'm part of GrowthX, I'm part of like Next Gen Product. There are a couple of other communities which are public and where people are experimenting, people are okay to fail, right? So that is the kind of mindset that it is shifting. So yes, there is anxiety behind all of that, but I think you'll have to push forward.
Yeah, I think I'll just pick something that you said. People are okay to fail. I think that's really beautiful that you've said, because we've come from a generation where it's a rat race. Everybody calls it a rat race, and when you fail, you feel even more anxious that, oh, why am I not? Why is it not easy for me anymore? And with a lot of buzzwords coming up for us also as freshers, it's been very hard because we've been studying something which was traditional, and when we were put into workforce, it suddenly became AI. It suddenly, they were
Correct.
telling us that, oh, you all are from the newer generation, you all should know how to adapt, when we were
Mm,
taught by the older generation. So
mm,
the mindset was never the same. Like, if we were
right.
taught in a
That's
certain way,
very good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were never given the platform to experiment while we were
Mm,
studying. So how do you suddenly expect us to be like, oh, now we'll experiment, now you show us what you have in you?
correct.
So I think
Yeah.
we've been hearing a lot of buzzwords that have been coming up, and one of the things is agentic AI. I was listening to a McKinsey podcast, and it mentioned that
Mm,
agentic AI is going to take over the systems one day. It's going to plan, it's going to decide, act
right.
autonomously. But as a
Yeah.
senior level, you are the chairperson, you are managing, you are planning, deciding everything, you're delegating tasks. Does it
Mm.
threaten you, or do you see agentic AI fitting it into the product systems, from planning to execution to, say, marketing, sales? How do you look at it as?
Interesting, right? So I have a way of when things get very complicated, right? And if there is a buzzword, so I try and understand it again back to first principles thinking. Really, how do you decipher what it is, right? So my way of looking at agentic AI, and I keep bringing up this example over and over again, is like think of it as a wedding planner, right? You would approach a wedding planner. You know that they have some expertise, but then they are not the do all end all. They have a team, right, under them. So they have a caterer, they have a person who's for the decor, they have a person for lighting, they have a person for managing and coordinating some of the ops work, they have someone for travel in case it's a destination wedding, right? So these are all your agents who can do things autonomously. Right, they're not going to ask the main person, hey, how do I do it, what do I do, and any of that. Like, they come with their own specialization, right? And then they sort of do their own job, they take calls on the job. They know, okay, if there is something that is super last minute and it's coming in, and they know how to handle it, right? So there is that autonomous behavior sort of that's built in, right? And then they all sort of, and the wedding planners sort of time to time follow up with them and then aggregate, and then they become like the front end person for you to go interact with, right? So now let's take an example of tool calls, right? Like within an agent, like for example a florist, right, like will know who their vendors are, right? They know how to sort of, negotiate with them for the right price, right? They know which vendors will give us the freshest of flowers, right? So again, like if we look at it in a real world example and make sense of it, and then see, okay, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, and whether I would need a system like this, right, is what you need to really understand. Because agents is a very, again, very sexy term, and it does the job, and it has worked, and it, I mean, even our company is experimenting with agentic framework and we are pivoting towards it. But we understand the use case where it needs to be plugged in, and that's how you sort of, go about it.
Yeah, I think like the points that you've made are some things that we don't understand as freshers coming in, and we're just in following the herd right now. We're just, okay, somebody tells us learn agentic AI, we're running towards it. Learn AI, learn LLMs, learn ML. So I think
Right.
the whole purpose of this podcast was to understand that how the senior people are actually laying out for us, and for us to understand, okay, let's get prepared in this certain way. So I think your point of view, your whole explanation was absolutely something that we were looking forward to. But if you want to explain in a very simpler language how AI enabled product workflow looks like, from product
Mm.
discovery to a product launch, what does it look like today? Like how do you manage that?
Right. But just to sort of add on a little bit more to my earlier thing, right? So if we want to, again, remove the friction, remove the inhibition on agentic AI and really do want to try, there are tools, right, that are available. Like I use Relay, and I use like N8N and few other tools which are like really plug and play. If you really do not know, like take a very small use case. I want to be able to receive the AI news out there and things that are changing and big news that are in the market, and I want it in my inbox, right? So it's a small thing, but behind the scenes, there are two cool calls and several agents that are working in place to make that happen autonomously, right? So try that out, right? I would highly suggest anybody who's listening to this, try it out. Like today, go open it in 10 minutes. You should be able to come up with a scrappy flow. That's fine, right? But that's the way to sort of cut the inhibition and really move forward, right? So we'll go back to your the second question that you asked about, like AI enabled workflow, right? Product workflow. So again, I would say like a very small framework for anyone to go use is problem first, right? There is absolutely no AI involved in it. If you want to use AI to be able to brainstorm, great. But you do have to solve for something. So just start with that. Those are the basics. Use AI for your research. Use the deep research to figure out opportunities, right? And then validate it with real users. Again, you don't have to use anything fancy, talk to people. And now more than ever, you can build a prototype in less than an hour. Like I extensively use Lovable to be able to bring out those quick prototypes and then iterate, right? Like keep getting user feedback. None of this is really changing, right? You used to do things earlier, the cycle time would have been 2 to 3 weeks. Now the cycle time is probably a day. That's what's different with the kind of tools that we have in mind, and then obviously ship the MVP, right? So one thing that's very, very important is once you see a lot of traction for what you have built, try and see how you can have users to adopt your product. That's the main goal at the end of the day. I mean, today more than ever, you have the how do I say, the tools and the equipments that are there to be able to be a solopreneur, which wasn't there before, right? You can actually run the show end to end. So that's how I would say, AI absolutely compresses time, right? But not the thinking. Please do not outsource your thinking.
I think some really eye-opening points there, because I've I completed my master's in a market which is so AI required right now. For us freshers, everybody, they want 3 years experience, 4 years experience. Nobody is wanting to bet on us and
Mm,
giving us a chance. And even when they are they think that we are more AI equipped, but we're still not being given the opportunities, is what I have spoken to a lot of friends. They're absolutely brilliant in what they're doing, but the experience is the one that is missing in everybody. So if you were
mm,
hiring today, what would
mm,
actually convince you to bet on someone who has less experience but is more
mm.
open to be a solopreneur, like you mentioned, is more open to be curious to things and to try out
Yeah.
things?
So again, basic qualities, right, that I look for. Be it anyone who's like just starting off or anybody, right? I think these are table stakes in my opinion, is curiosity. You need to have side projects going, right? So I'm not really interested in 100 bullet points in your resume, because it really doesn't matter unless you have shown some outcomes, right? And real projects solving real problems, right? Any kind of experiments. I have tried this kind of a mentality, right? And it's okay if you've failed or succeeded. That's the next thing. That's okay, right? At least you have tried. So for me, the green flags would be, even though they are messy builds, that's fine. That it knows that you have tried and moved past the bare minimum and learning from failure. So the kind of stories that I would love to sort of see is, hey, I tried this and this is what happened and here is what it is. It failed, but like this is what I learned out of it. And if you can explain the why, right? Because what everybody can, but the why is only explained by somebody who has tried and sort of gone through that journey. So those are some of the, again, to me it's going back to basics, right? It really does not matter whether you have 5 years or 0 years of experience, so long as you have tried and so long as you have that kind of a mindset.
I Yeah, I love how you're answering to that, because if failing is such a taboo, and like if we sit and we do projects and it doesn't come out the way I think everything is very aesthetically beautiful in the market right now in terms of portfolios or GitHub profiles or projects. But sometimes, when you try to compete with that and it's not happening, you doubt yourself that, okay, maybe, and you don't know how that person has developed it. Maybe that person has used AI, or maybe that person has taken somebody else's help. But I think it's very encouraging for you to say that it's okay, however the outcome is, trying is what matters.
Yeah.
Having Taking on the point of building products, we are just told just build products, build portfolios. But as a PM, what are the products, or what are the real products that actually count as a PM work experience? Some topics that students can work on, or they can build something in that domain.
Good question. So, I mean, again, it again depends on how you want to do it, right? Like if you want to still start off with something, I would say that, look for everyday problems. There are problems around you, if you look for it, right? So for example, there are people who want to do personal branding, but they really do not know how. And AI has really come up in a way where, we can like, it sort of gives us a voice. Right. So let's say, for example, you want to be able to post on LinkedIn, very frequently, but with something very meaningful. Right, but you can't really outsource that to say, hey, go come up with something random and then I'll go post it. Like, people will see it through, right? So you can again, it's a real problem that you have, right? Like, start with yourself, like start with a problem that you have, right? You don't have to solve world problems immediately, but if you can start to solve a problem for yourself that you have been not doing able to do it for a very long time, and it's always kept on the back burner, try with that, right? But even then, how you use these AI tools also matters, right? Like, how does Celine come through even though she's using AI, right? So train your agent, or build your custom GPT, train it to say, okay, here is how I respond. Here are the 10 ways that I usually respond to. Here is what matters to me. These are my ethos. Right. And then build that, and then start, posting, or start utilizing, the moment you begin to solve for a problem, right? And then things get better, right? Like, then you'd say, oh no, actually, I don't write long post, I only do short post. Actually, you know what, like, I'm more upfront in terms of the way that I sort of look at things. My worldview is this, right? So again, going back to fundamentals, talk to users, define problems, prioritize trade-offs, ship something, measure it, right? You have to measure. It's not like, okay, hey, I built an amazing lovable prototype, everything looks so nice, but nobody is using it, right? So again, comes back to, what's your problem statement, who you trying to solve it for, what do you really want to achieve out of that? And then when people start adopting, understand how are they adopting, where are the friction points, right? You have to measure what you build and then go back and iterate, right? Today you don't have to go to a designer. Today you don't have to go to an engineer. Right, I mean, at least for the first phase. The first phase is now completely controlled by whoever, and the same goes for an engineer. They don't have to rely on a product, they don't have to rely on a designer. So it's sort of, that's why I said that it's a level playing field at the moment, but we have to think of the basics, right? The basics are not going anywhere, the basics are not getting replaced by AI. That is still us, very human. Right, build tiny products, even if it's a Notion tool, it counts. Right, so that's how I would sort of, rewire and sort of think of it that way, so that AI is just a tool for me to use it and for me to be ultra productive.
um I it's brilliant how you said to even build small products, but if you had to give the same suggestion to somebody who's in the industry for say 5 years, 10 years, or more than that, like a very senior level person who's already having so many responsibilities, who's taking over charge, but they have a traditional mindset, and it takes time for one person to change and
Yeah.
suddenly adopt, okay, now use AI. You don't have to use Excel or Word, or you have to use Notion or things like that. So what do you think is the realistic way of upskilling to AI without having the fear of burning out or feeling overwhelmed by things?
So I would say maybe like a cheat sheet or a checklist. Again, it can vary for individual. Is obviously, like you said, the kind of problems that, as you have more experience in the industry, you'll tend to have a different worldview and tend to start picking different problems. So that's how the kind of prototypes or the kind of ideas that you're solving for will be very different for a senior person versus someone who's just starting off. But again, even that, I would say it's all a level playing field. But coming back to you know uh, removing the friction for adoption, right? So um, look at things that will matter to you, right? So okay, if I'm freaking awesome at Excel, I do it. Like, I don't have to use AI at this moment to be able to do, right? Maybe where I can, like, I might still be amazing at Excel, but like I might take like 5 days to derive insights out of it, because I need to do a lot of pivots, I need to understand it, do a lot of data crunching, data transformation, all of that. So that's where you can start to build, like, okay, hold on to your strengths. That's okay. Not everything has to be replaced by AI just because it exists, right? So I would say, maybe if I'm a data scientist, if I want to be able to say I have to coordinate with 20 different teams to get the right data and do all of that, I would rather do, okay, like there are synthetic data sets available, right? Download a synthetic data set, or there are tools to even build your synthetic data set that can probably take half your day, right? So which means that your ability to build a POC just becomes that much more efficient, right? You then, use some of the synthetic data set, build your model. There are tools like Plexi or other tools where you can upload your data set and then like figure out, okay, the basic POC. If I'm able to sort of ask a particular question, what is the model returning and what is the model score, right? Like accuracy, recall, precision, whatever eval metrics that you have, right? You can do it, right? So I think that's where you'll have to understand where you are, what you're working on, where do you think that it will matter to you. You don't have to replace everything that you do suddenly with AI tools, because then it becomes inefficient. If you're good at something, continue doing that. If you think that, hey, this is something that's taking like too much of a churn in my life, and I think I shouldn't be spending time in stuff like that, is where I think you'll start to introduce the right tools to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, it's nice to hear somebody, who's taking it very easygoing and relaxed about it and not overwhelmed by everything, and very articulate in what you're trying to say, giving your experiences and the kind of right direction to everybody. And I think our viewers are going to really love this podcast for that reason, because no bullshit, straight to the point. You have a certain roadmap you have to follow, and it's really inspiring also to kind of hear everything that you're trying to say. But talking in terms of resources, I can see that you've already, researched a lot on these tools. If you were to genuinely recommend learning AI as a product professional, what are some
Mm.
resources that you would say that, hey, these are absolutely good in learning it? So
So again, my go-to ones is, I started out with some of the YouTube channels. There are a lot of them, but like one from IBM Tech, at least like I'm a very visual person, so they always like draw like a visual to help me understand how the workflows are. So IBM Tech is one thing that I would absolutely sort of recommend anyone and everyone to just go through it and understand what's happening in the industry. And then like Substack is a great one, right? Like there are a lot of AI leaders. So I would rather look at it this way, right? Like look at companies which is already working on something that's like grounded on ML and AI way before AI even became a buzzword. Like Netflix. Like you've only seen recommendations over recommendations for a very long time, even before AI as a buzzword like really kicked in. So they've been doing something right and they have expertise. So I would look for companies like that, and then the right folks from those companies to be able to follow them on Substack. Like Paul Hiron is one of them. Like he has a lot of amazing content on AI, and then like follow AI companies, right? Like Levin Labs is doing like a great job in terms of translation and like real time translation. So I think there is a lot to sort of learn from it. Like Tesla, like they've been doing using AI even before it became like a buzzword. Sarvam AI, again from India, like look at regional specific, locale specific, right? It doesn't have to be only US based or the Western thing. Look at like how you can build for India. I think that's something, an area that I'm truly passionate about. And also like podcast, because I mean, even the format in which you learn is slightly moving, right? You can always go back to your books to say first principles thinking and whatnot, but by the time the book comes out, it's already few years outdated. Right, so I would say right now we are in a ever changing world, so rely on digital content, rely on like people who are building. And I think for me, the best learning actually comes from communities. Look for communities who are building like whole day, just build, right? Build together, hackathons. Let's all experiment together. Nobody knows really how what things are going to shape up like, but still it's a safe space for people to build. Like I again highly recommend people like joining communities like GrowthX. Like they're amazing in terms of how they've pivoted into AI very quickly, and they have like workshops happening almost on a daily basis or a weekly basis, right? So look for those communities which could be very small, but they have people of the right intent and the right curiosity and coming to build something, right? And that way you learn a lot. Right, because now we are in the build era and the measure era, so it needs to be, it can't be just theoretical, in my opinion.
Thanks, Haripriya. I think a lot of these resources would be useful to all of us because there are a plenty of resources out there, like an ocean full of resources. When you type AI on YouTube, you'll get a long playlist of things, and then you'll end up getting confused as to what to go through and what not to. And some of them are really good, some of them are really basics. So as an experienced person, when you give us something to look upon, it's credible is what
Yeah.
and that is what we're looking for. Haripriya, we've spoken about a lot of things in this entire podcast, be it how to cope up with AI, what are the new learning skills that we have to adapt to, or what are the tools that we can use. For someone who is an early professional or a student, how do you think they should frame all these things in a resume, or how do they portray themselves basically when they are applying for a company?
Right. I think one is because the market is like super cluttered at the moment. There are very few jobs and too many people applying. Right. So I think one of the ways, if I were to sort of approach, is to um, have resume as just a link, right? And really build your either like your Notion document or be it whatever tools that you would like, but build a list of things that could truly showcase, especially if you are applying for product roles, showcase that in a way where, hey, I identified something that seems to be having this friction. Here is how I approached it. Here is, if I were to sort of measure it, here is how I would measure. And these are some of the industries, or these are some of the things that it could readily be useful to, right? And especially if you are building for, applying for a certain company in a certain industry, I would say pick and choose two or three industries that really speaks to you, right? And then look for problems that you can potentially solve for, and then build two or three projects around it, so that way it's very easy. And it sort of cuts the clutter, because everyone is going to be sending in a Word doc or like a PDF, right? I understand companies also have to evolve to bring in a lot more formats, because resume need not be just a doc, right? Or if you are a very extroverted person, like build in like a quick AI video, talk about your different products or projects that you've built, and then just give links. So if they can click on those prototypes or links to your products that you've built, see for themselves how it sort of works, it really takes you like a mile apart from everybody else, right? Because it shows that someone cares, someone's taken that effort to build something, they've put in time and effort. Um, Fortunately, unfortunately, these are all needed, right? That shows intent. That shows that you care, basically, right? So I would say approach your resume differently, right? Don't think about, okay, now let's go into another resume builder, go build my Word doc or anything. Like, it's okay. Stay true to yourself. Who first understand who you are as a person. What do you really want to come across as? Okay, if you are a problem solver at the very core of things, and your worldview is looking at things in the most simplistic manner, right? If that's who you are as a person, go build something that just showcases that. Right? So that's a slightly different way to look at how you want to project yourself.
On that note, I'm really grateful for you, for having, for having us, you giving us the time to speak to you. Your journey, by the way, I'm a huge fan of women who lead the industry regardless of the circumstances. And I am
Right.
absolutely a fan of you. I'm inspired by your journey. I was going through your LinkedIn and I was like, how did you do it? Like it's a huge thing. So thank you for being the pioneer for women, trying to get into the generation, and not just for women, for everyone. But
Right.
we are really grateful to have you on our podcast. I'm sure that many other students, many other professionals like me have enjoyed listening to you, listening
Mhm.
to all of the valuable insights that you've given us. Thank you once again for the conversation on the curious workforce. We're grateful for that.
Thanks, Celine. And you had some amazing questions, I must say. And I'm super glad to be helpful in whatever little way possible for the upcoming workforce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.
If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And also comment all the questions that you have for us. Until then, follow the Curious Workforce for more. Thank you.